6.5 to play now. Leonard down the lane, down the hatch, counted on a foul.
The National Basketball Association and fans of the sport have been treated to some of the greatest players of all time over the last few years, with Kawhi Leonard being one of them. Having averaged a grand total of 31 points per game for the Los Angeles Clippers and shooting over 50%, there's no doubt that this talented small forward is in it to win it. But besides his incredible statistics, what do we actually know about the basketball legend that is Kawhi Leonard? Well, whether you're a fan of the shooting guard or just want to know more about the man who is edging his way into the Basketball Hall of Fame, you've come to the right place, as we're about to explore some shocking facts you probably never knew about Kawhi Leonard. So strap yourselves in and get ready for the ride of your life, as things are about to get interesting. But before we get into it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe with notifications turned on so you don't miss out on any of the new videos we post. Number 1. His unfortunate tryout debacle. Kawhi Anthony Leonard, as he is formerly known, was born in Los Angeles, California on June 29, 1991. Making him only 29 years old at the moment. And although fans now know him to be one of the best and most wealthy American basketball players in the world, this wasn't always the case. Life in the suburbs was quite difficult for Kawhi, who didn't really feel like he fit in when it came to the groups of kids at his high school. In an effort to meet some new friends, he decided to sign up for the basketball team, discovering just how talented he was after learning the rules of the game. Strangely enough, Kawhi actually faced a massive roadblock to the start of his basketball career, which took place as early on as high school. Since his mother was out of town, Kawhi found that he was unable to get a ride to his high school basketball team tryouts in his freshman year. Since Uber wasn't exactly a thing back then, he decided to call his head coach and ask him for a ride, or at the very least allow him to try out on a separate day. Unfortunately for Kawhi, the basketball team tryouts went ahead without him, with the young star missing out on a full season due to his inability to make it to the tryouts. And while Kawhi took this as an opportunity to broaden his horizons, can you imagine how it must feel to be the coach who cut a future NBA player from your team because of such a ridiculous reason? That head coach is probably kicking himself right about now. Number 2. His second passion. After being cut from his high school basketball team because of what was termed tardiness, Kawhi went on to try out for the high school football team, which is where he learned to be more physical on court. And while he decided to go back to basketball the following year, Kawhi made a bit of a name for himself on the field. With a wingspan of around 7 feet and 3 inches, and a height of around 6 feet and 7 inches, it's safe to say that he would have made an incredible NFL player at the end of the day, if basketball wasn't indeed his first calling. And surprisingly enough, football actually runs in his family's veins, with his cousin being NFL wide receiver Stevie Johnson. We're just glad that Kawhi decided to head back to basketball after being cut the previous year. If he didn't, the NBA would have lost out on one of their greatest players ever. Number 3. He is one of the hardest workers in the NBA. Talent comes naturally to many sporting legends, but it's only when they decide to refine their skills and train their bodies that they make the transition from good players to unforgettable icons. According to reports, Kawhi has always known this and has spent the majority of his life making sure that he is in the best shape possible. This incredible work ethic of his actually started back in college, when he was playing for San Diego State. Early one morning, he decided to head to the college gym to get a few reps in and make sure that he was ready for the day. Unfortunately for him, he found himself unable to turn the lights on for some or other reason. Rather than giving up and skipping out on his workout, Kawhi decided to make a plan that would enable him to work out in peace. He went on a bit of a search and found a lamp resting just outside of the locker room. Sneaking this small light source into the gym and plugging it in enabled him to see just enough to get in his morning workout, allowing him to maintain his schedule and keep himself in the best shape possible. The majority of us would have used the lack of light as an excuse to skip the gym, but it's clear from this story that the same cannot be said for Kawhi, who went on to become one of the hardest working players in the NBA. Number 4. He prefers to live in the moment. Being a basketball player now has a lot less to do with actually playing the game and more to do with the image you portray to the public who has invested in the sport. It's pretty disappointing to say the least, but is obvious from the massive social followings that ballers of recent years have been aiming for. The more of a following you have, the better brand deals that you are offered. After all, you don't need to be the best player in the league to make millions, you just need to be well liked. Kawhi has never really conformed to this behavior and still considers himself to be a basketball player of the older generation, even though he is only 29 years old. Strangely enough, Kawhi goes even further than not actively pursuing likes and follows on platforms like Facebook and Instagram. In fact, he has said on many occasions that he prefers to be a bit off the grid when not performing on the court, which means that he has no social media at all to pass the time with. Kawhi likes to live life in the moment and doesn't like how distracting social media can be. He would much rather focus on his first passion in life, which is his overall love for basketball and desire to become as great as possible. Number 5. He never let the NBA change who he is. Another thing to notice about Kawhi is that he never allowed his draft into the National Basketball Association to change who he is. The vast majority of rookies in the league decide to spend a lot of cash after signing their first contracts. This is why, quote, living the baller life, end quote, is an expression that has been used to refer to people who like to buy extravagant things, from a massive collection of cars to intricate jewelry that shows just how far they have come. This is the usual journey that new players in the NBA like to take. But when it comes to Kawhi, this phase was almost skipped altogether. In fact, after being drafted into the NBA, Kawhi continued to drive his old Chevrolet Malibu, which he bought for himself back in college. Surprisingly enough, this led to Kawhi being criticized for not enjoying his 7-figure salary. When asked why he still drove his Malibu, he said, "It's good on gas. It's a good commute car." With one solid action, Kawhi had dismantled the stereotype that often followed new basketball players in the league, which shows the type of personality that he has. And while he now enjoys a silver Porsche as the fruit of his labor, Kawhi still continues to be the humble man he was prior to being drafted, setting a great example for kids and adults alike. Number 6. He has some pretty famous friends. Although most fans would consider Kawhi to be one of the shyest professional basketball players in the league, he still enjoys being outgoing when the situation calls for it. This is why he has surrounded himself with some of the most extroverted friends anyone can get their hands on, including but not limited to famous celebrities such as Lil Wayne, Kendrick Lamar, and YG. This is definitely one way for Kawhi to force himself out of his shell, who has in recent years featured on his friends' Instagram posts, showing that he can indeed have a good time when off of the court. We're just happy he can find some time to relax. Number 7. He has no interest in winning awards. Although Kawhi has been able to take away a great number of awards over the years because of his crazy skills on the court, he isn't really interested in the titles that he has been given. After winning the Finals MVP in 2014, for example, he became the first Jordan brand athlete to win since Michael Jordan, whom many still consider to be the greatest basketball player of all time. The comparison to Michael Jordan is uncanny, and now that he has switched over to New Balance, he stands the chance of being the first New Balance athlete to ever win the award. But Kawhi has said on many occasions that these awards essentially mean nothing to him. As long as he enjoys the game and plays to the best of his ability, he's happy with himself, and that's all that matters. In other words, Kawhi has at no point gotten a massive ego because of his incredible achievements, and to this day remains one of the best role models in the history of the sporting platform. Since kids are often brought up to seek rewards for good sporting play, it's nice to hear that Kawhi is there to tell them that the most important thing is that they are proud of themselves. Number 8. He thought about holding off on being drafted. Last but not least, Kawhi actually almost stopped himself from declaring that he was ready to be drafted when he did. In fact, he said in the past that he was completely focused on college life and studying further before he decided to make this decision. When discussing the matter with the New York Times, he mentioned that he was enjoying his lifestyle and didn't really want things to change. In his own words, "My family doesn't need the money right now. We're not starving, hungry, living poor. It will be nice to have a lot of money, but I think my family could hold out for 2 more years if I play through my senior year." But luckily for us, he decided to take the leap, becoming one of the greats. What do you think of these shocking facts? Be sure to let us know in the comment section down below.